Hey everybody, this is Perch. Hey, here's a business video which appeals to some of you a lot, but clearly not most of you, because these are some of the lowest rated videos that I do, but I don't mind, but I tend to enjoy them, so, screw everybody else. And for those of you who like them, here we go. It's more of a business. This is kind of disruption in business. So I talk about disruption a lot on this channel, or at least, a reasonable amount. And why that matters to me is because once upon a time, certainly in the technology world, but in most fields, if you go to get an MBA, if you go to get any kind of degree where you're going to sell or you're going to build something, they may call it a different thing. Disruptor or disruption is a fairly, I'd say, new-ish term. We were talking about in the 90s, but still, it's there's different kind of business leverage. There's a lot of different ways these things are described. But they teach you about disruption in this one way that I think if comic people adopted, they would be powerful. And in some cases, comic people have adopted them, these techniques. Sometimes they don't even know they're doing it, but they have gotten powerful. And the idea, the basic premise, if you're going to college, or you're taking a course, they'll describe it to you kind of this way. They'll say, how does something operate? What's the workflow of how something operates? For example, in a comic context, you make a comic, you produce a comic, you take the comic to a distributor sells it into the direct market sells it, and your value comes basically in the sale of the, from the distributor to the market, to the comic shop, to direct market, and not from the end consumer, but it's a safer place of revenue. And then you can have a back-end revenue model where you sell things direct to consumer at time to time because you've gained that platform. Cool. Okay, so you understand how the business works. And then, a lot of classes, but particularly MBA classes, will teach you to look at that model and figure out how would I disrupt and how would I protect from disruption. The first is far easier than the second. How you disrupt means you look at these steps and you say, well, what if I took a piece away? Say, what if I took away the distributor and instead I direct distributed to the comic shops? What would that mean? Well, it would mean a lot of extra complexity, a lot of extra work, a lot of extra steps. It would lower my profit margin. That's not a good disruption, unless I could figure out how to print on demand or drop ship, or that maybe I could do something along those lines, and then my costs go down, and so I'd have a higher margin. I could offer more to the comic shop because I've taken out one piece of the value chain, and that means we both can benefit. So maybe there's some way to do that, but it would require hiring a bunch of new people and taking on additional risk, and I don't want to do that right now. And that's fine. You don't do every piece of disruption that comes to your mind. But there, it's kind of like the video I put out a couple days ago talking about Spider-Man and this idea that there was once an idea floated, and I failed to mention in that video that I don't know that Todd McFarlane would have ever gone for it, but Marvel believed he would. They believed they had enough, whatever, the magic sauce, and I know some of it. They feel like they could have, gotten him to do it. And this idea that the final issue of the storyline would go out on digital and not print. And it was this was kind of a tack disruption. They knew that this would piss off the fans. But their belief was, because this was such a storyline that people have been waiting for, because it was something that people were so desperate to see, the desire to see how it concluded would overrule the desire to be pissed off about having to go to digital. And so it would move the market. And if they could move the market, they could keep the market. And if they could keep the market, they could effectively force this disruption. Disruption can be positive, it can be negative. Sometimes you do something negative in order to force the market the way you want, and you just have to be careful, because you've seen there has been negative disruption that's gone on that hasn't caused the positive second half, and that's been a problem. So but right now you should be trained to think from a disruptive standpoint. What could I do that would change the way things are done in a way that benefits me or the company or the fans or all of the above, hopefully? What can I do to take this world I don't like and modify it? There's a process called Six Sigma that you may or may not have heard of. Some companies are gone for this. It could mean one of two things. Either it's a good model, because for the record, I like Six Sigma thinking. I think it's a good I think it trains the mind to work a certain way that's positive. But it can also be something that a consultant basically comes in and sells you a program for like $10 million and milks your company out of cash. And maybe you get the program, maybe you don't, but they get paid. So they're disrupting you for their own gain. But Six Sigma basically trains you to look at a process and say, how do I take pieces out of it so that the process is less complicated? And because the theory is if it's less complicated, then I can be more focused on quality, and there's fewer moving parts, and I can make more money in the process. So with comics, everybody should be thinking right now, how can I disrupt? And disruption can take a bunch of different forms. Can I put out a comic that is highly valuable and a new business model that benefits me more? Can I get people reading and changing their habits in a way that benefits me? If I'm DC, is there something I could do to what I publish that would basically, get people attracted to a new model? Think about Netflix. Netflix started with mail-in DVDs, and eventually they had the digital, on demand. And if you remember, when Netflix first started doing kind of streaming movies, and you had this, don't get a disc, the initial reaction from the audience was negative. People did not like it. They did not like it because they didn't trust it. They're like, well, the bandwidth is going to be shitty, and I'm remembering back to when I had AOL and that loud, annoying modem and streaming issues, and it probably won't work properly, and I just want to hold something in my hand, said Netflix customers. Well, here we are a couple years later, and I don't even think they do the DVDs anymore. I don't know. Do they still put out Blu-ray? I think they actually took that part of the business and spun it out, so somebody else had to deal with it because it was outside of their core. But basically, they went for this, and they taught the market a different way to expect things, and then they made everybody else chase them, which, of course, screwed Blockbuster pretty good. But it was in comics, what is it that Marvel could do? What is it that DC could do? Or even better, what is it that Dark Horse or Image or Mad Cave or somebody like that can do that truly disrupts the market? Saying, and God bless them, I love it for that. If Dark Horse came out and said, hey, we've got a new 4-issue limited series featuring Walt Simonson, I'd be thrilled. I'd buy that comic. I'd be excited. I'd be glad Walt Simonson got a paycheck. But none of that's disruptive. That's just a good Walt Simonson book coming at you, and none of that's going to change the world. What is it they can do to change the world? What if, a Dark Horse or an Image or somebody like that hired a bunch of very, very skilled artists, kind of lured them away? Art Adams, Walt Simonson, John Byrne, like legends of the past that people really want to see. And they basically, through very careful scheduling, figured out a way where they could put out one of those books a month. Now, obviously, Art Adams is not going to do a monthly book, but could Art Adams do 4 books a year? Could he do one quarterly? And could you then stagger those books so that you had a premier artist once a month coming out from your company? Could you do that? Probably could. Now, a lot of people in comics will tell you why you shouldn't do that. Why would that? Well, readers won't read quarterly, blah, blah. They'll tell you lots of different things about why it would fail. But what if you were a small company and you basically trained your buying audience that the really good comic companies, the ones that everybody wants to be and are successful, those companies put out books like this once a quarter, prestige, high quality artists. That's the right way to do it. That's the way you should expect comic audience. Don't put up with monthly bullshit of subpar artists on books with characters you don't give a shit about trying to tell a story when you don't even have a story. You don't have enough story to tell to be out monthly. So why, don't waste your time with amateur hour. Come get this, and you're guaranteed a good book from a top artist, 4 times a year. And by the way, you don't have to wait, every 3 months, because we're going to stagger them out. So there's a top quality book out every month. It's just by a different artist, telling a different story. What if you got people accustomed to that model? The funny thing is, collectors, given their tastes and preferences, could probably move to that really quickly. And if you could do that, what would that force Marvel to do? Well, if you're a small company, that would screw them fast, because they've built up their business model on stuffing the shelves, getting tons of, basically saying the battle is going to be won on having 80 comics a month on the comic shelf. And DC's like, okay, yeah, I'm with you. I'm doing that too. And Image is like, well, that's the way the comic business works, I guess, so we'll try it as well. So every now and then I talk to a small company, like a Boom or an Aftershock or an IDW. And I'm always depressed when one of them says, like, yeah, we're going to eventually get up to 30 books a month because, then we'll own that shelf space. I'm like, what a waste of fucking time. That would be like a competitor to Blockbuster saying, we're going to have DVDs with cleaner, like, Blockbuster will have 4 copies of the new James Bond movie on DVD, but we're going to have 6. And because we have 6, they'll always be able to get James Bond. We'll even do a little advertising campaign going, we guarantee you that when you come into our shop that smells like popcorn and ass, that we'll have more copies of James Bond. I hear this stuff from comics business. People want to go. They basically have fond memories of conventions or shops or whatever it happens to be, and those memories are awesome. We love them, but your goal in life as a business should not be to try and recreate what you had fun with in the past. Your goal should be to create a strong business. I hear people talking about their plans for conventions. Like, pretty soon, we're going to have the biggest booth on the show floor. Like next year, we're going into the pool for New York City Comic Con. I heard this just last week. We're going to, basically when a convention happens, people have booths, and you basically have a pool that you go into, kind of a lottery. And the people who've spent money for a long time get the good formats, but generally the smaller companies get put into a lottery, and it kind of dictates who gets space. And you generally, if you renew right away, then you're guaranteed the same spot you had the year before. It's a racket for sure. But basically, people are like talking about, like, I think I'm going to be able to edge out, Aftershock over here and have a bigger booth next year, and I'll be close to the door, and that's going to really help me. And I hear this stuff all the time, and I'm waiting for one of these companies to go, you know what, next year, fuck the booth. We're not going to do any booth. It's a waste of money. People don't even like it. Instead, we're going to get 3 or 4 Artist Alley booth, like the small ones, and we're going to theme them so they look super badass with we're going to find some of our artists, and we're going to put the money into them to make their booth look better, be better. We're going to hire some booth babes to stand by the Artist Alley table, but they're going to be promoting our shit. So basically what we're going to do is when you go to Artist Alley, about every 10 little tables or so, one of those tables is just going to look fucking much better than the others. Because we're going to put money to getting a nice skirt on there. A skirt means the thing around the table. We're going to have somebody there as a helper. We're going to make those more efficient. We're going to have some contests where we're going to give away some books. We're going to work with the artist. And basically, we're going to get the 4 or 5 artists that work for our company. We're going to make them look like badasses in front of all the other artists. And as a result, the attention's going to be there. We're going to use this energy and this money far less than we'll spend on a booth. And we're going to make all the other artists on Artist Alley wish they were working for our company, because we're going to basically send the message, we treat our people well. And what's also going to happen is all the collectors who are coming around to get things signed, we're going to make fucking sure that every single person who comes to the show leaves with something from one of our artists. Whether it's, they can't all get a commission, but so we'll have some prints there. Maybe we'll have the print for free. We're going to pay for all the prints. And, maybe the artist is going to pay for an autograph. We've got to work it out so the artist makes money. Maybe we'll subsidize the artist. Maybe the artist is going to say, I normally sell a print for like $10. We're going to say, you know what? We're going to, we want you to give those prints away for free, and we'll give you $5 per print. So you're not going to make as much, but you are going to make more because more people are going to come to grab free, and we're prepaying them for you. So you're guaranteed to sell out of everything. And people are going to be hyped to get something from you. And so it's going to build up your name, build up our brand, more of our stuff out there. That's what we're going to do. Try that. That's disruptive. Do things like that to say, we're not going to go to the convention and do the same old shit. Maybe we don't help Artist Alley. Maybe we don't do a booth. Instead, we go across the street, rent a bar, and say, every night of the convention, it's happy hour for 3 hours, coming to you from Boom. And we're going to have people there. We're going to have contests. We're going to have a DJ. We're going to make it. It's going to feel different, but it's going to be fun. You've been to a convention a million times, but you walk in there, you're going to get a party with our people, having a good time, and you're going to, and you're going to all leave with some special merch that you can't get anywhere else, and that you're guaranteed when you fly home, drive home, whatever it is from this convention, you're going to have something special from our company and our people, guaranteed. Like do something like completely flip it. But instead, I get what if we had a bigger booth? And what if in that bigger booth we had a bigger sign? And we could, what if I know that what I heard this one idea once, and they're like, we're going to have a booth, and inside the booth, we're actually going to spend a bunch of money to make the booth look like a comic shop. And then we're going to have comic shop shelves in the booth. They're like the shelves that people are used to in their comic shop, except on the shelf, it'll just be our comics. And that's people are like, oh my God, it's like there's a comic shop inside the convention at the Comic Con. And it was just a shit idea. It's like, so we're going to pay a bunch of money doing the same old crap, and then we're going to recreate the same old crap inside of the same old crap, and then we're going to put our things on it as some kind of phony thing, and we're going to sell the comics. By the way, that was the other part of the plan. They're going to put comics on the shelf just from their company and then sell them at cover price. Why? It's like, maybe we'll have some drawings for a couple exclusives. Oh, fuck off with that. Nobody cares. People are over that. Be disruptive. So I guess my point is, if you're in comics, it is not only okay, it's imperative that you think a little bit of, how can I do something different? And by the way, chances are 9 out of your 10 ideas suck. Don't do 9 out of the 10 ideas. But, find some good friends who will help you, determine the one good idea from the 9 dumb ideas, and then go all in on that. At least it's fun to wake up in the morning and think about how you're going to change the industry, even if it means you don't change anything that day or that week and you go on doing your old shit. It's still healthy for your mind to think about how you do things differently. Do things differently. By the way, I'll pivot a little bit to poke at some people who need a good poke from time to time. That's not a euphemism. The crowdfunding stuff. The crowdfunding mentality, and I've seen some arguments lately around you have to live stream and you have to this and you have to that. Where is the innovation? I grant you the disruption, the innovation 4 or 5 years ago. Sure, you're selling direct to market, you're doing everything else. But if you think right now that you are being disruptive by, I'm going to get on Kickstarter, I'm going to get on Indiegogo, and then I'm going to do some live streams, and then I'll do some more live streams, and then I'll sell my book. None of that is disruptive. Tons of people are doing it right now. Doesn't mean you can't. By the way, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm not saying crowdfunding is bad. I'm just saying you're not disrupting anymore. You are literally doing what hundreds of other people are doing. And by the way, if your goal is to create a comic business, then basically tying it to a bunch of personal labor around live stream is not. That's marketing. Not saying you shouldn't do it. If you have a book out, you need to do some of it, no doubt about it. But what's the next step? What's the next thing? What else can you do? What can you do beyond the live stream? Where does that lead? Are you selling yourself as a personality, or are you selling the comic? Now, maybe you want to sell yourself as a personality, in which case, maybe fuck the comic book, just live stream. But everybody, whatever you are, you're trying to disrupt. You're trying to change. Apple is one of the most disruptive companies in the world, and even there, many, many times, they fall into a rut. They fall into the phone this year has just got a better camera. So please buy our better camera phone. Please buy these headphones. They've got a longer battery life. Nobody gives a shit about that. What is a disruption? And Apple usually finds their way again, and then they do it. But there's no such thing as you landed somewhere. Because granted, crowdfunding and that direct-to-consumer model is newer and is certainly more disruptive than the traditional direct market comic business, for sure. But both of those things on their surface are not disruptive anymore. You've got to go farther. You've got to do more. You've got to do different. And it's kind of fun to think about how you would kill your enemies, because that is also part of disruption. I didn't talk about the protect from disruption part of the equation, but that's also valuable. Okay, if somebody comes at me, how am I going to stop it? Unfortunately, for a lot of big companies, the answer is I'll reach into my wallet and I will buy them, and then they won't be able to disrupt me. Yeah, it doesn't really work in the comic industry. Nobody has that kind of cash. Make no mistake about it. For all the talk about the big two, Marvel and DC, one thing Marvel and DC are not doing, because based on their parent relationships, their companies, they can't. But one thing they're not doing is buying their competitors, acquiring them. And Marvel and DC, in theory, should be in the position to do it. Some people know that I was looking to acquire one of the publishers several months ago, and still probably will at some point. But I'll be honest, the price tags for a lot of the smaller guys was very low, like ridiculously low. Low to the point that if Marvel and DC wanted to, they could scoop up like 5 or 6 of them. Easy. They're not doing that. One, because the smaller companies aren't worth it. And two, they don't have the money to spend. So, take that for what it will in the comments. I've strayed a little bit. All right. This video got too long. As they say, I'm supposed to keep them between 6 and 8 minutes. So sorry, went 20. But that's disruption. So thanks for listening.